P-39. The engine is mounted behind. She'll tumble and spin and she'll auger you in. Don't give me a P-39. No!
Hey gents, Idaho here. The Bell P-39 Airacobra is a fascinating aircraft. It had an unconventional design that's mostly known these days by its limitations. It had no turbo supercharger, so it was pretty useless at higher altitudes. And the engine was placed behind the pilot, which allowed the plane to mount a central 37mm cannon firing through the propeller hub, but gave the plane an unusual center of gravity in certain conditions that could make it tricky to fly. In P-39 pilot Edward Park's memoir, Angels 20, he calls the P-39 a dicey, difficult plane. He says, "I'd managed to tumble in one, falling head over heels for a few turns until it straightened itself out. It would do that once in a while, for the engine was mounted behind the cockpit to make room for a 37mm cannon, and when the ammunition drum was emptied, the center of gravity moved aft." Bell apparently tested the 39 for spin characteristics with a full load of ammunition up front, which balanced it out. But the pilots often didn't train that way, which meant that young, inexperienced pilots were flying an aircraft with poor flight characteristics. In memoirs of pilots who went on to fly other types in combat, they described training the P-39 and how easy it was to spin it. For example, future P-47 and P-51 pilot Harvey Mace wrote, "The P-39 was very unforgiving of careless handling. Usually it was a very easy airplane to fly, even the planned stalls were quite normal, but an accelerated stall or an unusual attitude could result in some wild unplanned maneuvers. Bell's test pilots have been asked to try to tumble the aircraft. Not surprisingly, they found it could not be done. However, if an airplane falls like a rock and flops around in all manner of attitudes in the process, then to me that's tumbling. I've tumbled the airplane twice and have watched others tumble at least 5 times, and as far as I'm concerned, that's that." Future P-51 pilot William O'Brien wrote that the center of gravity on the P-39 moved around more than a party girl at a company picnic. With a full load of gas, it flew differently than it did an hour later when the fuel burned off. The same was true when flying gunnery, except it got worse as we expended both fuel and ammunition. There are those who say the P-39 won't tumble, but I've seen this changing ends occur. This experience with the P-39 meant that American pilots were often afraid of the aircraft. Edwards Park writes about someone asking a Flying Tiger for his opinion on the plane, and the Flying Tiger looked a little uneasy and said, "The 39's okay if you know how to fly it. A lot of people don't, including me." In Tunisia, where I'm flying in this match, the P-39 had a dismal record. The book Fighters Over Tunisia quotes an American P-40 pilot as saying, "I flew a couple of escorts for P-39s during my tour. Many of the pilots in these aircraft were afraid of them and figured they didn't have a chance if they were jumped by enemy aircraft without top cover." That American pilots were afraid of their own aircraft is pretty telling. It's hard to fight effectively when you're scared a hard turn will send your plane end over end. To be fair though, a lot of American aircraft had a poor record at first in Tunisia, including the P-38. Inexperienced American pilots were fighting experienced Luftwaffe pilots, and it showed. In the hands of an experienced pilot who wasn't afraid to push the aircraft to its limits, and who was operating within altitudes that the P-39 was effective at, the P-39 could be pretty deadly. One of the highest scoring Soviet aces, Alexander Petrushkin, achieved most of his kills in the P-39 and chose to remain with it to the end of the war rather than transferring to another aircraft. Incidentally, from 1943 on, he flew the N model P-39, which I'm flying here. Now, in War Thunder, where most fights happen at low altitudes and death is impermanent, so it's not so terrifying to pull hard and risk a tumble, the P-39 can be a really formidable aircraft. It's a jack of all trades, which is the type of aircraft I love. Not overly good at any one thing, but good enough at everything to be able to compete rock, paper, scissors fashion with whatever enemy faces. Fighting a Japanese plane or a tourney Italian? Use your speed and boom and zoom tactics. Fighting a German? 39 can dance fairly equally with 109Es at lower altitudes, and it outturns 190s handily. The P-39 pilot does need to be careful though, because just as in real life, in War Thunder the P-39 will stall aggressively under harder maneuvers at any airspeed, and especially at low speeds, and it can easily enter a dangerous flat spin. But if you fly the P-39 right to the edge and no further, it can be quite nimble. Having a stick with an extension helps a lot in finding the sweet spot. The armament of the P-39 is also a great strength. Not only does it have that ridiculous 37mm cannon, but it also has twin nose-mounted 50 caliber machine guns and 4 outboard 7.62 Brownings. I find that the armament is far more effective than the P-63A-10, even though the 63 has a 37mm as well and 4 50s. Part of that might be that the 39 is fighting less well-armored EC-2 aircraft, but I feel like I get way more 37mm hits with the 39 than I do with the P-63, despite the P-63 having a faster fire rate. Even the machine guns on the 39 seem more lethal. I honestly think there might be a little bit of Gaijin balancing magic happening here, but who knows. The cockpit is pretty cramped. Visibility to the rear isn't bad, but visibility forward is impaired by too much cockpit structure. And honestly, if this scale is right, I don't think I could even fit in a P-39 in real life. I'm 6'3". I have to really hunch to get my eye on the gun sight. I can't imagine how folded my legs would have to be to fit in here. In terms of flight performance, the P-39 usually has a stable feel with a pleasant bit of inertia in the controls. Turning at speed is quite good. Turning at low speed tends to feel wobbly and loose, but if you ride the edge you can still make the nose move. The climb rate is quite good, competitive with 109s when using web. It doesn't steep climb as well as they do, but it has a surprising amount of power. And deck speed is excellent, significantly better than most aircraft in EC2, including 109s. Anyway, that's the P-39, a beautiful aircraft and one that could be dangerous either to its own pilot or to the enemy. Treat it right and you'll be rewarded with a very capable and hard-hitting plane. On this particular evening, I went 21-0 in it. I honestly feel like this thing hits harder than the P-63. And this is a 109 East. This is going to be a hard fight right here.
Need cover!
Oh my gosh, it's 190. So many of them. $30 is nuts, man. It really is. There's a 109 through. The Re's gonna be the threat though. He can outturn anybody here. Oh wow, that's actually bad too. Out of the fight. Whoa, jeez. Okay, we're at least doing some damage here. That's good. Okay, zip through, go. This guy right here. We're gonna get out of plane. Reverse here. Run my engine right. drag in here, but I need the power. This being caught in a flat turn. See if I can threaten him and go do something stupid. Yeah, like that. That's much better. Yeah, that works for me. Get him. Come on. I don't have the speed. Energy is really low here. That guy's gonna get me if I go up on this guy, but I gotta try to save my buddy. Oh good, he's doing a hard turn too. Oh, he's going after this guy? Wait, what's going on here? Golly. This thing hits harder than the P-63 any day of the week. Throttle down now. Choice. 169 rounds. Can I get this guy or not? Let's see. I'm out of ammo. I have no idea how many kills that was, but it was kind of nuts.